Welcome to episode 3 of Diary with a Messiah. As I touched on in my last episode about training, I wanted to kind of finish this part of training and going into the importance of seminars. So just kind of taking it back to the last episode, as I mentioned, the reason why I believe I got so good early on was because of the consistent training and consistently being in the ring 4 days a week and then twice on Sundays with 2 classes. I did mention some of the performers that came through those doors, but I'd be remiss if I don't really mention everybody because the group of talented individuals that were at my training school at IWF at the time, many of them went on to become great professional wrestlers in our business. Some were able to kind of break through and get those opportunities on a bigger stage, while others may not have, but did have successful careers and had great minds for the business based on the way that we were trained. We were taught so many of the fundamentals and the basic in and outs of psychology in our business that while they do ring true in today's style of wrestling, some of it has evolved. The business is the matches are a little bit faster paced. They're not as slow and plodding as what I grew up on in the 80s and 90s style of wrestling. But the reason why I also got so good was because all those individuals at my school had the same drive, had the same passion for wanting to make it. And that's, again, what my school was based around. My trainers were not interested in taking anybody in as a student unless they had the mindset and the goal of wanting to make it to a bigger company. For a lack of a better term, they were not interested in taking on students that wanted to be weekend warriors, because my trainers wanted to grow their business and wanted to grow their school to be an outlet for bigger companies at the time that they could partner with. And I'll speak a little bit that in a bit. But, going back, as I mentioned, the guys that really pushed me were the guys that, man, they really wanted it. And I think we fed off one another. Some of the other guys that passed through the doors of the IWF training early on in so many other capacities, were 2 performers that, were managers. One was Mr. Mike Winter, who had incredibly sharp and quick wit and was great on a microphone, very sarcastic. And the other was Alicia. She went on to not only be a manager and a valet, but also an accomplished performer in the ring in her own right. She had a very successful career along the independents until, stepping away from the business. You look at a referee side, anyone that has followed me on social media knows the friendship that I have with Shawn Bennett. And he joined the IWF school about a year and a half or so, maybe a year after I started. And he only ever wanted to be a referee. And I had never seen anyone coming up in the business as passionate and as professional and as dedicated to his craft than Shawn Bennett. He took everything learning about refereeing very seriously. He also, from a referee standpoint, being on independent shows, probably had the most immaculate gear bag that I had ever seen. His pants and referee shirt were neatly folded. He invested in referee-style wrestling boots. I believe at one point he may have also invested in his own earpiece sets to communicate with, producers and things and bookers in the back in the locker room. And I look at where that passion came for him because he continued with it. He stuck with it. and now he is one of the head referees and relied upon for ring crew for WWE. He was able to break through that glass ceiling. Another performer in his own right that was very quirky when he started was Dan Danilo Amphibio, also known in the early days as Dangerous Dan, and went on to become Danny E. Part of a tag team called the Heavyweights. Danilo, by nature, was not a very tall individual, and when he started as a kid, obviously did not have the shape or the look, but he had incredible charisma, an incredible personality, and over the years as he got older, really got himself into great shape and really became an awesome in-ring performer as he was a personality and a character. And as I take it back to the last episode where I say, you need to learn how to do anything and everything in this business, Danilo was given some tryouts on a loop with WWE. And, for whatever reason, as a performer, they may not have been interested at the time in him, but they were interested in him as a referee. Danilo took to that because you've got to break your way into the big time any way that you can. And Danilo took that. And again, Danilo is now a referee on, the SmackDown brand of WWE. And he's made a great life for himself. Another performer that came through the doors was a gentleman by the name of Damian Adams. He started a year before I did and helped me out very early on in the beginning. Very gracious and very giving and very patient. Damian Adams is an accomplished professional wrestler in so many different styles of professional wrestling. He also spent some time down in the OVW system, which was one of the original WWE developmental systems. Damian is now an accomplished trainer who has done a fantastic job of training a lot of talent and seems to have a knack when it comes to training the female performers in our sport, some of whom have been signed by WWE and other companies, as well as he's got some male and female students that, when our business gets back up and running again, I have no doubt are going to make an impact. Another gentleman that I'm sure many know by the name of Fred Rosser was in WWE for a period of time as Darren Young. He was part of the original NXT kind of talent show episodes, moved his way up into the main roster as, part of the Nexus, and then went on to be one half of the primetime players with Titus O'Neil. Fred was another accomplished, performer that had a passion. When he first started, he played sports in high school, and not to go too into detail, but, I opened a door for Fred to get into wrestling. And, he just, I opened the door and he just, barged right through. Fred was about a 230-pound brick house of an animal who just had a look, had a smile, had the size for what we did. And he grasped everything very quickly because, like myself and many others, he was a sponge. I give Fred all the credit in the world. He is doing wonderful things outside the business with the LGBTQ community, as a public speaker, getting himself involved in other aspects of the entertainment world, and has still kept himself in phenomenal shape. And then the one that I think I credit the most and akin to is the one that I've kind of been side by side with, was a performer by the name of, he went by at the time Travis Blake, and then later on went by the name of Michael Blake. He and I were, around the same time of experience. He came to the IWF a little bit later from a school in Pennsylvania called IWA that was run by a journeyman by the name of Rapid Fire Maldonado. Blake and I were very generic in ways, but we were kind of the same size. But for some reason, he and I were kind of like oil and vinegar, so to speak. We had a very interesting relationship from a drive standpoint. We were paired up at different times as a tag team, but I think where I really got the urge to really want to be the best was every time I saw Blake do a drill, I had to do it better, and vice versa. Anytime on a show that he had a good match, I had to have a better match than him. And I think that kind of professional camaraderie really went a long way, because I think without even saying certain things, I think we pushed one another to really be the best. And I still think to this day, the world of Michael Blake. He's a good friend. He's got an amazing business outside of the professional wrestling realm, a beautiful family, and he'll always be a good friend. But I really feel like he and I were, kind of running mates and trying to be the best that we could. And, I would say it's a little bit of professional jealousy. So when I look at all of those amazing talents that I had the ability to learn with and share rings with very early on, I think those guys are what really pushed me, along with some of the others like a Roman and a Hadrian and a Josh Daniels and even Rob Echoes early on. Another aspect of our business that I think is very crucial and very big, and if you're a performer that has been doing this, whether it's, you're a rookie, brand new, whether you're doing this 5 or 10 years, seminars are very big. And if there's anyone out there that, if they're, very early on or very advanced, and you don't think partaking in a seminar is worth it, you're shortchanging yourself and you're doing yourself a disservice when it comes to learning so many other aspects of our business, or different flavors of ice cream, as Dr. Tom Pritchard would always say. I've been fortunate in my time to do so many different seminars. And while there were seminars where my mind was blown, there were others that I was kind of just given refreshers on. But I did learn 1 or 2 things that I could take to make myself better. So if you're a young talent out there, all the way through experienced, it doesn't matter the cost. Invest in yourself. I have done that for so long, and that's why I believe I have a lot of the knowledge that I have, in addition to being a kind of a little bit of a historian and wanting to always learn more. I was very fortunate early on to learn a lot of the basics and the fundamentals of psychology and selling by doing seminars with, the Honky Tonk Man, doing seminars with Ricky Steamboat. Got a chance to put together a seminar with the legendary Rip Rogers, who is very famous for training many of today's stars in Batista and Randy Orton and John Cena. But when it comes to seminars, you have to take everything in with an open mind, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there in front of other peers at a seminar that you may never have met before. That's the only way you're going to really learn, but that's also a chance for you to network with others, network with the person running the seminar, network with the promoter that is hosting the seminar at their school or at their event. Because even if you're not booked on that event, you may open that promoter's eyes that has never seen you before. And while you may not have an opportunity on their event that night or upcoming, you may be on their radar for future events. So there are so many things that you can get out of doing seminars, and you never know where that's going to take you. I myself have been given opportunities on shows that I was not booked upon just by doing the seminar and showing what I could do. And whether that was getting onto a pre-show match or a show that was on the card later on, it didn't matter. It gave myself another platform in a new area in front of a new audience to learn who Shawn Donavan is. And I'm very grateful for a lot of those things. but you also can't just stay and do the seminars in your bubble. You have to invest in yourself, and you have to get outside of the bubble that you reside in. For example, a few years ago, there was a long-standing event called the Mid-Atlantic Legends Fan Fest, where it was a host of superstars from the Mid-Atlantic area, and they combined that with a 3 or 4 day seminar. And I invested in myself by going to that seminar and learning from multiple individuals, from the legendary Les Thatcher to Dr. Tom Pritchard, Nigel McGuinness, Lance Storm. And, through that convention, other people would stop in and drop some advice and knowledge. I spent some time learning one day from one half of the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton, about tag team wrestling. Got a chance to hear Boogie Woogie man Jimmy Valiant speak to a lot of those in the seminar about charisma and personality and how to deliver your message in front of an audience, in front of a camera, on a microphone. So being able to learn different techniques from Lance Storm and Nigel McGuinness, and then get history lessons from someone like a Les Thatcher is all invaluable. And another reason why I believe that I grasped the business so quick as well was from Dr. Tom Pritchard. He, at the time in the early 2000s, was the head of developmental talent for the WWE. And he was traveling around to a lot of the East Coast independent organizations that were there. And at the time, he had partnered up with my school, IWF. He had partnered up with the original ECWA that was run by one of the longest standing promoters in Jim Kettner. And then also partnered with Chaotic Wrestling up in Massachusetts at the time, which featured another whole host of talent that I can get into at a different point. And, there was an idea of starting a very early version of the Performance Center that is now in Orlando, Florida, at the old Trax facility that WWE had used to film early seasons of their Tough Enough episodes. For whatever reason, that kind of idea, unfortunately did not come to fruition. But what came out of that was Dr. Tom visiting, our school every 5 to 6 months, scouting talent that we had to see who on the East Coast was ready. So in doing a number of those seminars with Dr. Tom and getting to know him over the years, really opened up my eyes, because he's such a patient trainer and is very approachable. Again, testing yourself in different waters. Wanting to learn new styles. I invested in myself and went to the New Japan dojo in California and spent 4 days, learning that style of wrestling a little bit as well. And that was focused on heart and intensity and aggression. And I believe I came out of that seminar with more aggression and more intensity than I ever have. Again, you need to take advantage and learn from anyone in a locker room that's been somewhere or has had, X amount of experience. Always a pleasure for me to pick somebody like, Homicide's brain the few times that I've been in a locker room with him, because he is a wealth of knowledge. Doing some shows out in Florida, I've had the ability to learn from Manny Fernandez a little bit, from Kevin Sullivan, from sitting down and talking with Shane Douglas, to most recently learning about Gangrel and his wrestling school and how he trains his students. So in our line of work, you never stop learning when it comes to seminars. So I encourage anyone and everyone, whether you are brand new or you've been doing this almost as long as I have, you need to consistently still train and keep your mind right in the ring and your body right in the ring as far as ring cardio. And you also still need to take advantage of seminars wherever you can do them. You'll be amazed at the knowledge you learn and the networking that you will make from those. And again, you never know what opportunities are going to come out of that. So thank you very much for joining me on episode 3 of Diary with a Messiah. Next week, I am going to delve into a different area that kind of blends a little bit of personal, real life situations while trying to make it in the professional wrestling world when it comes to relationships and significant others. Little bit of stories that I've never really been comfortable sharing until now, but I think it may help many that are watching this or have been doing this for a long while that are fearing taking the next step in their career and not knowing how to blend that with a relationship. So again, thank you very much for your time. Drop me some comments if you like it, didn't like it, have any ideas on how to make it better, and I'll see you next week.